which is very confusing. Robert, thanks for joining us here at Big 550 KTRS.
My pleasure, McGraw.
Let's go back to the beginning because I don't know about everybody, but I sort of don't remember this story when it was in the news a couple of years ago. So give us a little primer. When did all of this start?
So late 2011, a woman named Betsy Faria, who lived with her husband just outside of Troy, Missouri, in Lincoln County, was found dead. She'd been stabbed 55 times. And the police kind of zeroed in on the husband. He was charged. He was convicted, sentenced to life in prison. And then later that conviction was reversed, and he was acquitted in a bench trial.
Now,
and the Hupp connection is she was one of Betsy's good friends. She was the last person other than the murderer to see her on the night she was killed. And a couple of days before the murder was also became the beneficiary of a $150,000 life insurance policy from Betsy Faria.
And one of the things that people have made note is that she was never implicated and or a suspect in the murder of this wife.
She was never a suspect from the police perspective. Obviously Russell Faria and his lawyer, from the very first trial, were trying to point their fingers at Pam Hupp and saying, hey, she's the one. She's the one. She's got the motive. She's got the opportunity. She was the last one to see her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the first trial, they were blocked from kind of bringing her into it. Although, in talking to the jurors, I think they knew what they were trying to do. They just couldn't present all the evidence that they wanted to present, and that is the reason the case was reversed.
Okay.
I mean, it's rare. Typically in Missouri, you're not allowed to say, Mr. X or Mrs. X did this without some evidence, and the appeals court said they should have been allowed, based on what they had, to present her as an alternate suspect.
The husband spent how long in jail before his conviction was overturned?
He, I think, a shy of 4 years.
Okay. Now,
between jail and prison.
This also garnered a lot of attention because Dateline came in and did a couple of Dateline shows on this.
A couple. They end up keeping. They're coming back over and over because there are always these developments in the case, and of course it's rebroadcast and everything else. But with each milestone, people are kind of checking in on this because even before yesterday, it was a pretty unusual case. I think yesterday kind of took it into the stratosphere.
Right. Okay, Robert Patrick of the Post-Dispatch. Bring us up to date. That's what was in the past. Now, she was arrested yesterday. Why?
Well, a week ago, a guy named Louis Gumpenberger, he's 33, there's a 911 call from Pamela Hupp's house. She says someone tried to break into my house. The O'Fallon police get there and they find Louis Gumpenberger dead. She says that he jumped out of a silver car and into her car. She pulled up to her driveway, put a knife to her neck and said, let's go to the bank and get Russ's money. And over and over and over again. She knocks the knife hand away, gets inside the house, tries to keep him out, but realizes at some point that she can't. So she runs to her bedroom, grabs her revolver, and then when he opens the door, she just unloads on him. Now, he had a note in his pocket, $900, and the note said, talked about Russ's money. She said to the police, I don't know who Russ is, and then later said, well, that could be Russ Faria. So, and again, I should preface this by, we know almost nothing about this case beyond what the prosecutors and police told us yesterday.
Sure.
So, everything I said should have a little, police said at the end of it, because obviously she hasn't been convicted of any of this. But it turns out that 6 days before the murder, she pulled up to a woman somewhere in St. Charles County and said, I'm a Dateline NBC producer, and I need your help reenacting a 911 call. I'm willing to pay you $1,000. You come to this house, my house, whatever she said, it's not clear, and we'll reenact this. And I think the woman went as far as getting into the car with her before sort of backing out. She didn't have the credentials and things like that. That's what they think she did to Louis Gumpenberger, who is a particularly vulnerable and gullible guy because he was in a kind of a catastrophic car accident back in 2005. So he's got a brain injury. He's got injuries to his body and not full use of half of his body essentially. So they think Pamela Hupp pulled up to his apartment complex, which is in St. Charles. She wasn't, according to her phone data, she wasn't there for more than 4 minutes. Somehow got him in the car, maybe with the same story, brought him home, brought him inside the house, calls 911 and starts to sort of play out this story. Hey, there's a burglar in my house, and help, and then they hear the shots as she kills him.
Yeah. So she got the $150,000 life insurance policy years ago because the wife quote unquote, changed her policy and gave it to her days before she was murdered. Now,
Right.
How much? Now we hear Russ's money. How much money did Russ have in the bank?
There were two other policies. How much does he have now is a great question because he had 4 years of legal bills and et cetera, et cetera. I think she had 3 life insurance policies. Originally, that $150,000 was supposed to go to her 2 daughters from another relationship. And so, the police determined that this whole Russ's money thing was a complete fabrication. She was trying with this note in the pocket, with the 911 call, she was trying to set up a scenario that she hoped that police would believe, where Russ Faria was out to get her. So any tension, any quote-unquote heat she was feeling with the Faria case would be diverted back onto him. So people would say, oh my gosh, he was acquitted of killing his wife, but he tried to kidnap and kill his wife's friend, who also testified against him in one of the trials.
Robert Patrick.
Let's put all the attention on Russ.
Robert Patrick, our guest, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, a reporter covering this Pamela Hupp story. Now, yesterday, they announced they've arrested her, and then at the end of the news conference, they then drop the Penn story on you guys.
Right.
So what happened there?
Well, as if it wasn't already sort of unbelievable enough, at the end of this press conference, they say, they arrested her. They arrested her on the street outside her house, or as she left her house, they followed her and kind of pulled her over because they wanted to. They felt like it would be safer to do it there. So they take her into the station. She declines to speak with them, and apparently she found a pen in her clothing. Asked to use the restroom, she went into the women's restroom and began stabbing herself. She stabbed herself in the wrist and the neck before they realized what was going on. They got in there, took her to the hospital, and as of yesterday at about 4 or 5, she was in stable condition.
Has Russ Faria, his attorney, he has talked to media, right?
Oh yeah.
And what is he saying now?
Well, I think this is vindication for what they've been claiming all along. I mean, in their minds, because, from almost the beginning, they've been saying, you're looking at the wrong person for this Betsy Faria murder. You should be looking at Pam Hupp. You should be looking at her. The evidence that they developed in defending Russ led them to believe that it was Pamela Hupp responsible for Betsy Faria's murder. And frankly, they were pretty unsparing in their attacks on police and prosecutors yesterday. They said, were it not for the botched investigation of the Betsy Faria murder, Louis Gumpenberger would be alive. And they don't know, police don't know if she did this, if she approached other people. There's a 6-day span between when she approaches this first woman and when she finds Louis. So they don't know if she was kind of cruising the roads of St. Charles County looking for somebody to rope into this big NBC thing. And you should know that there is, or there was, an actual Dateline NBC producer who was driving around St. Charles and Lincoln County producing these Dateline episodes. So I don't know if Pam used the Dateline producer's name, but I mean, there was a real basis for this because there was a Dateline producer driving around asking about all this stuff.
Robert Patrick, does Pamela Hupp have an attorney now?
She does. I think as of last night, she had the attorneys that represented her in a civil case filed by Betsy Faria's daughters over the insurance money. Pam won, the daughters lost. Now, I don't think I don't know how long they will represent her because, fairly complicated case, and I don't know that they specialize in criminal stuff, but I attempted to reach both of them yesterday without luck.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you can only assume that one of the high-powered attorneys might find their way into this case here pretty soon. Robert Patrick, St. Louis Post-Dispatch reporter. We will continue to read all of your great work on this case at stltoday.com. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you.
You got it. Robert Patrick, Post-Dispatch reporter.